I got a burp coming and it won't come out. It's like about to vomit. Daniel Isn't Real is a 2019 American psychological horror film directed by Adam Egypt Mortimer, starring Miles Robbins and Patrick Schwarzenegger.
He's lonely. He's nothing without me.
No more Daniel. No more Daniel.
I just want him to be gone.
Welcome back to the Cult of Films. I'm John, the host, and I think I might be doing this by myself. However, I do have, if he's real or not, he's here. That's Coleman Yeti.
Get in. Get in.
What is that behind your head? It looks, I know what it's not. It's not a tumor.
Oh, that's just my shadow. Don't mind that. It's fine.
Oh, okay. We are here today to talk about a film that I don't know if a lot of people have seen. I happened upon it, and then I happened to happen Coleman upon it. And the more I found out about it, I was like, oh, okay, I can see how this got made. This is like Trust Fund Kid, the movie. But does that mean it was bad? I don't know. We'll get into that in a little bit. But Coleman, did you hear of anything about Drop Dead Fred 2, The Sweet Life of Luke and Danny?
No, I never heard of this movie. I'm not surprised that I never heard of this movie after I saw the movie. Not because of what I thought of the movie, but just because I can see that it's clearly not something that got a lot of attention.
True, yes. But about 5 minutes in, actually not even 5 minutes in, because I watched the trailer for this, and then I sent it to you, and it seemed like you were kind of in. I was just like, Coleman and I on this show have a type of films. We really have, like, John dies at the end, and, you know, House 2. This felt like it just, like, merged into our lane perfectly.
I would say so. I think it had a more serious tone to it than those other two movies. John dies at the end is obviously completely self-aware. That's part of the shtick, right? This one, it had a more serious tone and seemed kind of interpretive to me.
I agree. It did, and then I did probably the worst thing I could have done after watching this, because okay, so I guess we're just gonna come out and say it. I dug this movie quite a bit, but then after it was over, I started watching the cast, like, interviews and stuff like that, and I think that was probably a mistake, because the filmmaker and especially the actors were very sure once it was off screen, and I guess I appreciate the director for doing this off screen, because on screen, yes, there is messages there, but it's a little bit more interpretive. Like you said, there's a lot of metaphors going on, but I mean, it's also not super heady. Like it's kind of obvious what it's trying to say, but it's not just like beating you over the head with it. But once you start, like, digging into the behind the scenes, and they were all trying to make sure that you know that this was an indictment on the failures of the mental health system, and that's fine, and also toxic masculinity. And it felt like you were at a party or something, and it's like two people, it was like people were playing password or something, and people, like, just threw in nouns or like things into a fishbowl, and then, like, you picked out two random things. It's like, okay, I have to make a movie about toxic masculinity and mental health, and then he kind of mashed it together, which those two things you wouldn't normally think would kind of gel well, but I don't know. I think that for the most part, at least, like I said, on screen, I think it was a valiant effort. What did you think?
God, I'm just like her.
No, Luke, you're not. You're something so much more interesting.
Now that you say it, it kind of makes sense, but I didn't read into that in watching the movie. Either of those things. I mean, obviously the mental health piece, not so much the toxic masculinity. I enjoyed the movie, and then I'd watched it a couple times just trying to interpret and figure out what was going on. You know, the guy's fighting his demon, and is the demon a real demon? Is it a piece of him? And, was really just trying to pick apart those scenes. I guess not so much the deeper story to it. But overall, I enjoyed the movie just, for the sake of watching a movie and not trying to read into whatever Hollywood was trying to cram down your throat.
Sure. Yeah, and like I said, I appreciate it more that it was more subtle what you could watch, because when I'm listening to them afterwards, I'm like, I didn't interpret this movie like this at all. And I just want to take this opportunity to say spoilers throughout. We're going to talk about this film. It's streaming on Amazon Prime and like Tubi. It's very accessible. It's like free with Prime and all that. I know that like changes, and that never ages well on these shows, because if you're finding this review like in 2 years, they're gonna be like, that fucking John, like, he lied to me. It's not on anything. That very well may be, but as of the filming of this, it is extremely accessible. So if you are interested in a fun-ish psychological, little bit of body horror, then go check it. Like, turn this off, go check it out, and then come back and watch the rest. But so there's the two ways that I once they said, okay, toxic masculinity and mental health, I thought the biggest mental health that issue that was featured was from his mother, played by Mary Stuart Masterson.
Jesus, what did you do?
I can't look at this face. I can't look at this face.
I interpreted that as just like, the father is gone for Luke. Luke's our POV character. The father is gone. He is now burdened with taking care of his mother that has extreme schizophrenia. And it's a lot. It's a lot to put on her kid. And, as schizophrenics tend to be, and my father was one, so I have some experience in this. They don't always want to or can't always recognize when it's a good idea to help themselves. With someone, I guess, with a little bit more wherewithal, she would have maybe gotten help a little bit sooner, but she just wanted to be with her kid, and so all this kind of falls on him. So that was one way, and then, as I was watching, I'm like, okay, so maybe it was just like, it was played out as like, he has it too, or, because it can be hereditary. But then towards the end of it, it kind of breaks down into a more supernatural or religious type deal. So I was just like, by the end of it, I wasn't thinking, I thought that him having schizophrenia or anything really was just a red herring. I thought that Daniel was essentially like a demon or some kind of a devil or something, and that he was just jumping from person to person, because it sets it up that way. The first 30 seconds of the film, you get this really cool shot of the, like, a really cool scene of this diner, and it's just like, this mundane scene, and they're just like, oh, do you want any more coffee? And then 2 seconds later, there's a person going and shooting up the place with a shotgun. It's very brutal, very abrupt, and very effective. I was like, oh shit. Like, I wasn't really paying attention at first. I was like sitting down, getting my coffee ready, and then like the gun started going off, and I rewound. I was like, oh shit. Like, okay, I need to pay attention. I like when movies, peel your eyes away from your phone or whatever else you're trying to do. And that was cool.
You know what his name was? His name was John.
Oh.
John died at the beginning.
Nice. See, I told you, we have a type of movie that we try to stick to here. That's how we get introduced to Daniel, because Luke, as like a young boy, kind of comes after the fact and sees the carnage of what just happened in this diner, and he sees like a dead body with holes, it's just staring at him. It's like right after it happened, but right before like the police really got there and kind of cleaned everything up. So I was like, okay, so I guess that's when Daniel attaches himself, because at the very end he kind of jumps, and what I assume jumped into the other person that was standing there. I don't know. How did you think that this was more of a mental health deal? Like, he had an imaginary friend and he had like undiagnosed schizophrenia, or was it more so like a demon type deal?
I don't know. At some point, if you let me talk, I'll let you know what I think. No, I definitely, the mental health piece I just got from the mom, like clearly schizophrenic. That's why the dad took off. That's why he felt that he needed to take care of her. But the movie very much presented it that Daniel was a demon. He appeared when Luke saw the dead body. And then later in the movie, he goes and finds the guy's dad and says, hey, did he have these issues? Did he, was he hearing voices? Was he dealing with what I was dealing with? And dad says, I have drawings, and shows him the drawings, and it's the drawings of the demon.
And it literally says Daniel.
Yeah. But, it says Daniel and Jon from this other guy's. So it's very much shown to be that Daniel's like a real entity that is living within Luke. And the only times I questioned it, and it's kind of one of the reasons I had to go back and watch it, is when I'm watching the scene with Daniel and the psychiatrist. I mean, it's Luke and the psychiatrist, and then he, hypnotizes him and brings Daniel out. And then you see Luke on the couch, and you see the psychiatrist staring at Daniel as Daniel's about to kill him. And so you're going, okay, but they've also shown that Daniel can push Luke out of the body, right? So again, it was just very interpretive throughout, because I'm going, okay, are these people actually seeing Daniel? And then I got my answer, and spoilers at the very end, when Luke shows back up on the rooftop with his girlfriend, with Cassie. Daniel's trying to kill her. Like, they show Luke and Daniel talking to each other and seeing each other. Then they pan out and they show Cassie and Daniel, and Luke's not in the shot. So I actually go, okay, so this is actually Luke's body that Daniel is taking over, but it's still very much presented as he's possessed. Like, why would Daniel show up right when the guy got killed at the beginning? If it wasn't he's trying to attach himself. And I guess at the end, when he jumped into the abyss, I was thinking more he's going back to hell or whatever, but I felt that was kind of left kind of open. Like, he could just be jumping into another person to start the cycle all over again.
I thought he was jumping into the girlfriend, because he kind of, it shows that he is he's like, his vantage point is he's on the roof still, and then they're on the ground. It looked like he kind of jumps in her direction. Again, it's all kind of interpretive, and that kind of stuff is fine. But the sloppy parts are Luke goes to that underground rave that looked like it was right out of like Blade. And I was expecting the blood sprinklers, but instead we got like weird inside out people. He's haunted, but who is he haunted by? Like, is he haunted by this entity, or is he really crazy?
Yeah. And I was trying to pick that apart too, but the way it's presented is just like there is another entity. And maybe that's not what they intended based on what you're saying the movie's supposed to be. But the way that they presented it and it could have been him taking over his body. I guess it was just the toxic masculinity taking over his body, and not a demon from hell, even though they showed demons and a picture of Satan and whatever else. I guess that's just to let you know that toxic masculinity is the devil.
It's like, why would they jump through all those hoops to put in that much effort into the prosthetics and the other guy that's, they're all trapped in the dollhouse and all this stuff. So if you really pick this movie apart, there is some flaws as far as the rules it sets up, and then how it breaks its own rules. And then even worse is like after that, after I watched, I was like, okay, cool. I don't know which way it was really supposed to go, or if it was executed, 100% well. Either way, if it was supposed to be all mental health, or if it was just supposed to be some kind of demon. But it was a fun thing. And then, like I said, I went and kind of dug deep and watched interviews and stuff, and them just kind of spelling it out. And I was just like, I don't. Did you guys see this movie? It just didn't feel. It felt really incongruent.
Watching the end of the movie and seeing Miles Robbins, the character as Luke, try to be Daniel. I think maybe they tried to make it where he was playing both characters, and then went, man, this guy's shit at being a demon.
I've shown you sensitivity.
Fuck this whole charade.
Add a bunch of special effects and demons and stuff to make up for his lack of acting chops into the movie.
Lack of acting chops. That's coming from, you are talking about Hollywood royalty. This is Tim Robbins and Susan Sarandon's child, Miles Robbins.
Is it really?
Yeah.
They probably should have just hired Chet Hanks.
Like a revelation afterwards, because the whole time I'm like, it's Sweet Life with Zach and Cody. Like, I thought this was Dylan Sprouse or Cole Sprouse the whole time. It was just like, if you know who that is, that's the guy from like Riverdale. He plays Jughead on that. But if you have kids around a very specific amount of time watching like Disney channels, there was Sweet Life with Zach and Cody, and then like Sweet Life on Deck or whatever. He was just one of the Disney Channel royalty. Maybe it was just because we watched Spring Breakers not too long ago, and I'm just like, oh, they did it again, but they gender swapped it. But no, it's just like so I kept thinking that it was someone else, but then I read that it was Miles Robbins and who he's related to, and then of course you have Daniel played by Patrick Schwarzenegger. So you have the offspring of these kind of well-known people.
Well, I mean, their parents are well known.
Oh, that's why I said offspring.
Yeah, and these guys are like, yeah, we get to make movies now. And they clearly can't do what their parents did.
I don't know. I have mixed feelings on both of them because I think that they did a pretty good job. Patrick Schwarzenegger felt like, because I know the movies he was doing were more like, I'm the heartthrob, or that's what he was being typecast as. So I could tell that he really wanted to change up in his career. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to just, his dad was what his dad was, and now he was kind of getting pigeonholed into something else. And so he wanted to kind of break it out. And what we were left with on screen was a mashup of a impersonation of Tyler Durden from Fight Club and Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, I think.
Yeah, no, I get a lot of the Patrick Bateman, for sure. Maybe less of the Fight Club, but more of that just trying to channel that American Psycho into his performance, and even a couple of the shots. Like, there's that shot where Sophie takes a picture of him in the steam room, and it just lights up his face, and it's all shiny, and you can like see the makeup, and it was very much Patrick Bateman-esque.
Yes. Yeah. Very, very sleek, very sweaty, or like, just shiny.
Yeah.
And that's what I guess they were going for as far as the toxic masculinity angle. It's just like Daniel is, again, but that's a third movie in itself. But if we were to go down that plot line, then Daniel is what Luke thinks a man is supposed to be, because he's being raised by a half of a parent, essentially, and that parent isn't his father, so he doesn't know anything. So he's just like, how, where does he learn it? How do I talk to girls? How do I drink at a party? How do I interact and all this? And so he projects Daniel to be this perfect form of what a man is supposed to be in his mind. So
yeah, in his mind, men are just supposed to be crazy and beat the shit out of people and maim them and choke people and try to murder them.
And write the answers to, math problems all over their body.
Right. Oh, and that was another piece that I was looking at watching the movie is, and the two ways to interpret it are, Daniel is a real entity, demon that he can see, and so he can write the math answers all over his body and see them, or Daniel takes over and does all the studying for him, and that's what his manly side does, is study in his free time, so that now he has the answers in his head, which that doesn't make a lot of sense to me for someone that's trying to murder everybody.
I guess he's supposed to be omniscient, like where it just looks like he's carefree, but still has all the answers. Which again, that plays to it's definitely a different person or different thing, because there's that scene in the library where they're going back and forth, and Daniel is reading over the girlfriend's shoulder, the poems and telling him so it makes Luke look sensitive or just cool and knowledgeable. But there's no way he would have known that because he didn't physically read it. So let's just do the filmmaker and the actors a favor. Let's just rule out mental health. Let's scratch that one off.
In that scene also happens the turn. He's reading the poetry to Luke so Luke can recite it back. And he looks all great and fancy and like a sweet guy.
To be naked is to be oneself.
To be naked is to be oneself.
To be nude.
To be nude is to be seen naked by others and yet not recognized for oneself.
And then in the third poem, or the third, he's supposed to read the Bible, and Luke starts saying something different. Daniel feels challenged and steps up and starts screaming in Luke's face until Luke has to shut the fuck up. And that was kind of the turn of, no, we're in this. It's not you, it's us. And then by the end of the movie, it should all be me.
Right, and that's the adult turn, because I think that there's a kid turn too when he makes the decision to try to get him to kill his own mother.
Right.
And that plays like, no, I don't want to say, I don't want to speak for anyone with dealing with these kind of real life issues, but it's just like, that's kind of more congruent with someone that is dealing with someone like that and that has it also, where it's just like the voice in my head told me to get rid of mom. And it's like, okay, so at that point I'm like, okay, I get that it's more about everyone has schizophrenia and, there's no time to diagnose Luke because he's so preoccupied with taking care of his mother. And that's like the real tragedy in itself. But then it just kind of boils down to demons and stuff. But Luke also has the power to lock Daniel up for decades, at least a decade, right?
Right. So I don't know.
Into a dollhouse has magic dollhouse powers?
Apparently. Well, I mean, this movie now that we're talking about it, this movie's a clusterfuck.
It is a clusterfuck.
Because it's clearly he's locking him up somewhere in his mind, and he's locked in the dollhouse, and he escapes on his own. And then he can't escape through the abyss, but he's got to crawl through the walls of his mind to get to the abyss. But there is really a demon that's possessing him or something.
This movie is 7-Eleven pizza. Like, it looks so good. Like, when you're hungover and you're about to get gas and you're just like, you're looking at it under that heat lamp and the cheese is kind of sizzling and stuff. You're like, man, this is a good idea. And then you buy it and you eat it. And like later on, you're thinking about it. You're like, fuck, why did I do that? It's kind of like that because it's a gorgeous movie. It looks beautiful. I'm sure that the budget was tiny on this, obviously. And there is definitely like flaws in the practical effects and a little bit some of the CGI. You could see the seams, but it's also a lower budget horror film, so I could totally see. I didn't care. That shit didn't bother me. I think for the most part, the prosthetic appliances, all that stuff was really cool. There's some scenes where it like goes full on Cronenberg, where he's like ripping his face apart, and it's shot really well, so you don't really see the budget restraints. Like it's just like there's a lot of good decisions as far as like the body horror and shit like that goes. But it's just like it's so surface levelly pretty. Like it's lit really well, but the substance inside, it's kind of hollow.
I'm just realizing that more now as we pick it apart. And then again, versus what they said, they should have never come out and said those things, because now you can just go, what? What are you talking about?
It's kind of fun. You get to like argue with the people that made it. You're like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Oh, wait.
That's not what you showed on screen.
Yeah. Again, just it's paced really well too. Like it feels like a really well-made film. And I was just like, as soon as like, and this is kind of, I don't know, kind of snobby or a dick thing to do, I guess. But like when the credits come on and it says like Shudder, like, it's like a Shudder movie, like it was made for Shudder streaming service. And I'm just like, okay, I kind of know what I'm in for here. It's not like, I'm not going to be like, oh, it's just going to be a pile of horse shit or something. But I was just like, okay, so I know what the parameters of a kind of movie this is. And to a certain extent, it kind of was. But then, like, the movie goes on for a good, like half an hour. Like, the first act, I was just like, I was so into it. I thought everything looked so good. It sounds good. It looks really good. And, like, really polished. And then, like, the second, a lot of people, like, have a lot of problems with the second act of this film. But they're like, oh, but it just redeems in the third act. And I thought the third act is kind of the sloppiest part of it. I feel like that, it doesn't really stick the landing.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, everything kind of falls apart. And again, because it's so set up for interpretation, if they're really trying to show something, they weren't successful in showing that in the indictment on toxic masculinity. And I guess the mental health piece I see, but there's still so many open-ended questions about Daniel throughout, if it was all in Luke's head the whole time.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of great ideas. It just, maybe someone needed to rein it in a little bit. It just felt unfocused, maybe.
Yeah. Again, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun scenes, like the face melting. Again, going back to when they're in the psychiatrist's office and Daniel, like, pulls Luke's mouth open and climbs in.
Super cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Which was a lot of fun, which I guess the way they shot it, well, the psychiatrist was in a trance. I don't know. Did they see Daniel? Did he not? I don't know. But
I feel like he really does once he comes to his house.
Yes.
And then he pulls him out that way. That's like the first time I think someone else sees him, other than because the girlfriend doesn't see him, but she draws him with like an aura in the background.
Right.
So there's definitely something there, but people can't just, flat out see the Schwarzenegger kid, and the psychiatrist was played by Chuck Wooji. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. So good from Peacemaker, so it was really fun to see him in here. Kind of playing a similar role from the show in this. He's not a psychiatrist in Peacemaker, but it's just like that type of... It's a very similar type performance, and I liked it a lot. I was like, oh, cool. The performances from the main two... and it sounds like we're giving this film a lot of shit, but there are some scenes where it really works. And what you can buy, at least what I could buy, was the chemistry between the two.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, the fact that Daniel's just always there. And it doesn't matter what Luke is doing. If he's with a girl, if he's, at a party taking shots, if he's talking to a psychiatrist, whatever he's doing, Daniel's always there, and Luke tolerates it. I mean, he just functions in these events with this, like, to him, literally other person in the room talking to him while he does all of those things, until the end where he starts freaking out in front of other people at Daniel. So that played well.
You could definitely see that they were both, like, the actors themselves were both having a blast with this too. Because they were, this would have just been, this movie just looked like it was a lot of fun to make.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because it's just like, let's fix the movie right now. If the premise is, if they just had kind of honed it in, get rid of all those other, off-ramps, and just, this is the premise to sell to Shudder. What if your imaginary friend turns on you? It's literally Drop Dead Fred, but with a horror twist on it. And if they just would have stuck with that and left it completely ambiguous, as if he is crazy, if there is a demon, if there's whatever, don't say any of that. Don't show a weird peanut butter face monster. Don't do any of that shit. Just have... essentially Tyler Durden. Okay, so I guess we're just remaking Fight Club a little bit. Okay. This is why I don't make the movies. Here's why I don't make the movies. But my son does.
Yeah, so that's how they made this movie, John. Let's make Fight Club, but we can't have it the same, so add a peanut butter monster. Jiffy Joe, if you will.
A Jiffy Joe. Which again didn't like take me out of it. It looks fine. It looks kind of cool. There's some scenes too. Like there's a scene where he's looking at himself in the mirror after he wakes up, and it's like this one take of him walking through a couple different rooms and just kind of taking it in and really absorbing. And that's the type of things that Miles Robbins did well. The more subtle things, I think he did really well. It was the more like, I'm goofy and I'm gonna pretend to be this weird bad guy and stuff. That's when it kind of started falling off the rails. I don't think that's his pocket.
No, not at all. I mean, when he's trying to be Daniel at the end and be evil, like he's much better at being an emo kid than trying to be evil and make evil faces and act that way. It doesn't suit him at all. Yeah,
and like the scared and the sad emotions worked. It's when he tried to go goofy. A couple things like towards the beginning where they were kids and they like pick up the broom, and then the next scene the brooms turn into swords, and then like a whole like green screen castle kind of manifests itself in the background. It kind of transports you. That's the type of shit that I wish there were more. Maybe, budgetary wise, they couldn't have done more of those, although they sure did show that, Abyss toilet bowl spinning insert shot like over and over again. So I'm sure they could have done maybe a little bit more, but that's the type of thing I mean, like where it delineates from being a Fight Club, where it is more dark fantasy of what's real, what's not, what is really going on. And still have the turn, still have Daniel wind up being evil. That's all really interesting. It's just that it kind of turns into a Shudder movie at the end. I'm never getting like screeners from Shudder after this review.
Yeah, probably not.
Sorry.
But there were fun scenes. I mean, fun, evil, mean, whatever, horror type scenes where he just punches his roommate in the face and shoves his face up against the steam pipe and burns the hell out of him.
Yeah.
He almost he tries to kill his mom.
But what is that sewer? Why does that sewer have tables and chairs?
It's the steam tunnels. Yeah, I was wondering that too. And lamps.
Yeah.
There's a lamp in the steam tunnel.
I'm going to take this opportunity to always take this opportunity to bring up my favorite movie of all time, Under the Silver Lake, and Coleman's favorite movie of all time. No, didn't it look like that Hollywood party where they go downstairs at that one like hotel and it's like all graveyard motif and shit like that? I felt like they borrowed the same set or something.
John, it looks like where the king of the homeless lives.
He was down there for sure. He would know what to do. He would be like, you guys are cool to fuck or murder or whatever, but just don't bring dog biscuits. It's like callback to a better movie. So this was adapted from a novel. This was adapted from In This Way I Was Saved by Brian DeLue. So I think that book series is a trilogy called the Vortex series or the Vortex trilogy. So they were seeing if there was any like groundswell for this to keep making these. So we might get 2 more of these. Would you be excited to see a sequel to this?
I would watch it. I am sure it would be terrible. I don't know. I mean, I have a feeling if they tried, because it's not like this was a huge hit to begin with. So if they made a sequel to this, even if they're trying to follow the books, it's just going to get cheesier and less budget and just worse all around is my feeling. So I'd watch it having watched the first one, but I would not have high hopes for it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I hope it would be a continuation of Daniel's character and not Luke's, obviously. But yeah, it would be interesting, I think, if I would like to see if it was going to happen to maybe get a glow up as far as a little bit more money behind it. I wouldn't even. I think that this filmmaker knows what they're doing as far as this director is competent as far as being a filmmaker goes. Maybe get someone else to write it. Maybe get like a buddy in there and, you know, have someone like flesh it out a little bit. He did co-write this with Brian DeLue, who did write the book. So who knows? This might be like super faithful to the novel. Elijah Wood was the producer on this.
Really? Watching the movie doesn't make me want to read the books,
No.
if that says anything.
No.
And I like reading, but you know, there's movies I see where I'm like, oh, there's a book. I gotta check that out. But this is not one of those.
Yeah. John dies at the end. This is not.
No, not at all.
But all in all, I don't know. We sound so negative about
We do.
this.
I like the movie.
Right, yeah. Same. It's one of those things where it's just like it just starts out so strong and you just hope that it keeps that momentum, and then when shit starts falling off, you're like, no, you're doing fine. Oh no. You fell. You know, oh shit. Well, pick yourself back up and try again, because you know, you didn't really nail this one, but it is an enjoyable watch. Would you recommend this film, and who would you recommend it for?
I really only want to recommend it to psychiatrists and psychologists because now I want them to pick it apart and give us their feedback.
Also tell Adam Egypt Mortimer that he was wrong.
Yes, totally. Like, all right, well, you didn't really portray either of those things that well. Beyond that, I mean, horror fans, movie fans, people willing just to give something a shot.
Yeah, and just how beautiful. I can't like undersell how great this looks. Like just the stark oranges and the blues and the purples. It's just lit so well. It's like almost like Nicholas Winding Refn lit well, or it almost looks like a giallo film. That is just it nails the fundamentals. But maybe we were worried so much about what it looked like, what it sounded like, and how it was paced. Like it was edited really well that the story just got left. And maybe it was the source material. I don't know. And according to Coleman, he doesn't care. He's not going to read the book.
Well, John, I actually lied before. I don't know how to read. So,
of course you can, because you're not really there. Right? Am I alone? Where can everyone find you, Coleman? Ah, it's the peanut butter monster.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Coleman Yeti, and occasionally on the channel Cascade Backcountry, going on crazy adventures with my buddy, and also right here on the Cult of Film.
You could find me on Twitter at John the Host. You could also follow this very show at the Cult of Films. You could listen to this in podcast form on iTunes. Leave us reviews. Leave us your unwanted imaginary friends. We'll put them to work. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the abyss.